Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we've got to talk about a whole bunch of new trainer cards, some of which are, shall we say, let's go through them fairly quickly. But some of these are really, really important, and we're going to start off with probably the most important of them, which is actually a reprint of Copycat. And we've seen Copycat many times before. You shuffle your hand into your deck and draw a number of cards equal to your opponent's hand size. It is a kind of card we've seen many times before. This is in no way, shape or form new, but it is big and it is important. Now, as it stands at the moment, we are going into the rotation, not really losing much in terms of draw supporters. Mainly here we're using Professor's Research and we're using Marnie. They're going to survive the rotation. As it stands at the moment, they're not going to survive the next rotation, that being September 2022. Now, admittedly, we got a year and there's a very good chance they get reprinted, especially Professor's Research, with a new regulation mark. But that's not the point, ladies and gentlemen. That's not the point. The point is that as it stands at the moment, we need something to be ready just in case. That is what Copycat will do. Not to mention, it's another shuffle draw supporter. There are some decks that do not want to play Professor's Research because the discarding is too much to go for. Now, sure, we've got Marnie, but Marnie doesn't draw you as many cards. And sure, we've got Judge, but again, Judge puts both players down to a new 4-card hand. It's good for disruption. Judge is, shall we say, not amazing if you're looking for draw power. And don't get me wrong, this can be played around. If your opponent ends their turn with a 2-card hand, this ain't going to be much use. But there are going to be plenty of times where they don't, and that's the point. You don't generally build your deck around this, but it is a very handy, lovely bonus for when you need another draw supporter. For that reason, it's pretty gosh darn good, and frankly, we should be happy about this. We should love the fact that this is coming back. Not to mention, we've always got those attacks where you need the same number of cards as your opponent, blah, blah, blah. Well, good news, ladies and gentlemen. Good news, because this is going to be there. We're going to have the reprint of Judge. We are also going to have this, and that is a very, very good thing. So the Grap Locks from Chilling Reign would be an example. 80 damage. If you got the same number of cards in hand as your opponent, you do 160. This is exactly the kind of thing where this is going to come in very, very handy indeed. Make no mistake about it, this is a very, very important card, and we should all be delighted it's being reprinted. This is going to see a huge amount of play. It's going to end up being one of the most important cards from the set. But we do have some new supporters as well. They are Schoolboy and Schoolgirl. And as one might expect from cards like this, they are very much kind of mirror images of each other. So Schoolboy lets you draw 2 cards. If your opponent has an odd number of prizes remaining, 3, 5 or 1, you draw 2 more cards. Schoolgirl, you draw 2 cards. If your opponent has an even number of prizes remaining, 6, 4 or 2, you draw 2 more cards. No. Just no. I love the little detail of the blip bug embroidered on their shirts. That is lovely. Or the jumpers. But no, I can't get on board with these cards. We've seen a million supporters over the years which are draw 2. But if this happens, draw 4 instead. I would rather play Dan. I think Dan would be a better option here. Dan is draw 2, but you play rock, paper, scissors, and if you win, you draw an extra 2. Because you know what? At least Dan can always get you 4. Now, it only will when you win, but it can always get you 4. There are many, many, many turns, in the early game where your opponent's got 6 prizes remaining. Schoolboy can only get you 2 cards. And if your opponent starts taking even numbers of prizes, starts carrying Pokemon Vs, well, you're never going to draw more than 2 cards. I cannot get behind these at all. I don't think they're good. I don't think you should be excited. But there are a couple of item cards that I think you absolutely should be very excited about. one of which is Toy Catcher. Now, Toy Catcher's a little bit of a weird one. It is a new item gusting card, but pre-coin flip Pokemon Catcher, this is not. Now, it does let you gust without a coin flip, but only on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with an HP of 50 or less remaining. Just grab one of their Pokemon with 50 or less hit points remaining, drag it into the active. I love it. Now, this is not going to be used for stalling very much, because, well, there aren't going to be many Pokemon with that little HP remaining you can use to stall. But that doesn't really matter. This is for taking out weak Pokemon and finishing off. And this is exactly the kind of card I could see being a 1 or 2 of in a lot of decks moving forward. You need to do just that little bit of extra damage in order to get a KO. We've all been in many, I'm assuming at this stage anyway, we've all been in many games where we've been just a couple damage counters away from a KO, and our opponent has retreated to the bench and foiled our plans. This is not fun. We don't like it when this happens. This stops that. This makes sure that your opponent isn't able to do this, and that is a very, very good thing indeed. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a little bit of a fan. The bad thing here is that it's going to work on some evolving decks, so something like a Snom in a Frostmoth deck has 50 HP, you will be able to get the KO. Similarly, you could combine this with things like Galarian, Zigzagoon, and Scoop Up Net. So if your opponent's got a 70 HP Pokemon, you can Zigzagoon, Scoop Up Net, Zigzagoon, and then drag it active. That's a little more awkward. But we're bearing in mind there are a lot of decks out there that are playing Galarian Zigzagoon, so all they would need to actually do is just have a decent start and play like 1 or 2 of these cards in their deck, and that would be enough to kind of get rolling here. So I am slightly worried that this is actually really bad for evolution decks, and we really don't want evolution decks to be more awkward to play. But make no mistake about it, this is a very good card that I do expect to see a whole bunch of play. Now, the other one that I think is a very, very good card that is going to see a huge amount of play is Rescue Trolley. I haven't actually said this yet. All our translations are from the lovely Antoine Boulet. Now, if this looks a little bit like a trolley you could use to rescue Pokemon, hence the name Rescue Trolley, you would be right. You choose up to 2 Pokemon with 90 HP or less from your discard pile, reveal them, and put them into your hand. And this isn't going to work for every deck, but this is going to work for a bunch of decks. And 90 HP has, just gone and become one of those key numbers. We saw that we recently got that re-release of Level Ball. Lets you search out a Pokemon with 90 HP or less from your deck. And now this gets 2 of them and recovers them and puts them into your hand, which incidentally is huge. We see things like Ordinary Rod, which is our best item-based recovery at the moment, but that puts them back into your deck, so you've then got to actually go ahead and draw them, which is clearly a pain in the neck. Here, they just go straight into your hand so you can use them again. And we should be a little bit excited about this, especially if you're playing one of those decks where your attackers actually have 90 HP or less, and there are a few of them out there. That actually means that you get to potentially just have really good recovery. It is not a card which is going to be great in every single deck. There are going to be many decks out there where this is an absolute garbage card they wouldn't even consider. But there are going to be many cards where this is actually legitimately a great option. So this is, again, one that you should expect to see absolutely everywhere in certain decks. Now, those are the cards which, as far as I'm concerned, are really like legitimate new staple cards. The rest of them are maybe not staples, but there are some here which are absolutely going to help some decks out. There are some really good ones. So let's take a look at Full Face Shield. Now, this one is a tool card, obviously. You probably could have guessed that. And it's a little bit of a weird one. It reduces damage done to you by 20 if you don't have an ability. Oh, that's a little bit weird, right? It reduces damage done, but specifically only if you don't have an ability. So again, what we've got here is a kind of awkward card where it really is going to depend on what you're actually playing as to how good this ends up being. Sure, there is definitely and very clearly a bunch of potential here, But let's not pretend this is some kind of perfect card. There are going to be plenty of decks that would want to use this, and then they go, oh man, I got an ability, that's not going to work. Because we've seen this before. We've seen it on Eviolite, which was for basic Pokemon only. That saw a huge amount of play. It was basically for EXs, Big E, Big X. It was honestly a little bit too good. But remember, back then, the max HP was like 180, so it had far more of an impact. Similarly, we've seen Hard Charm before, and this is Hard Charm. Except it doesn't work on Pokemon that have abilities. And Hard Charm saw a bunch of play. So the fact of the matter is, if Eviolite was a really good card that saw a bunch of play, and Hard Charm was a really good card that saw a bunch of play, and this is the same kind of thing, then one could imagine this is a pretty good card that is probably going to see a fair bunch of play. I think that is a pretty fair prediction to make. However, it doesn't work on Pokemon that have abilities, and that's a huge problem, ladies and gentlemen. That is a huge problem. Honestly, all you need to do is just go and look at any list of winning decks to see how good it's going to be in any particular format. But you have been warned, ladies and gentlemen, as good a card as this is, and it is a good card, it is not always going to work. Sorry about that. But if you want a slightly less sturdy but slightly more annoying mask, how about Underworld Mask? Now again, we've got a Pokemon tool card here, and when the Pokemon this card is attached to takes damage from an opponent's attack, you may have your opponent choose and discard one card from their hand. Nice! I like this card, ladies and gentlemen. I like this card. Because you see, it's hand disruption. But it's actually really good hand disruption. Now, don't get me wrong, right? This isn't going to empty out your opponent's hand. What it's going to do is just get rid of the odd card here or there. And it's weird, because this is not really the kind of thing we see much in the Pokemon TCG. Not essentially discard a card from your hand in order to attack. But it is something we see quite a lot. I mean, Marvel Champions springs to mind. It's a really nice living card game. Very, very highly recommended. We talk about it a lot on my other channel, Wassy Plays. And I love Marvel Champions. But one mechanic which comes into that game a lot is when you attack or are attacked, you've got to discard a random card from your hand. And that doesn't happen anywhere near as much in Pokemon, certainly not when you attack. So there are absolutely going to be games where you go to attack and then you lose your only supporter and then you draw nothing for a turn or two and lose. And actually, this might be a really nice time to mention that Garbodor V Max that we looked at yesterday can actually have 2 Pokemon tools attached. So what you can essentially do is attach 2 of these, and then your opponent loses 2 cards from their hand when they attack. And this is the kind of thing that is going to make your opponent rethink attacking. Now, if they've got a big attack that's going to get them a key KO, obviously they're still going to take it. But if what they're trying to do is 2 or 3 hit KO, this is going to occasionally make them go, you know what? We need to wait and try and get a 1-hit KO. Clearly, Tool Scrapper is going to be amazing if you can use it to get rid of it, but it's not always going to work, is my point. This is something we should like, ladies and gentlemen. This is the kind of thing we should be getting again. I told you, we might be looking at many cards in one go, and this might not be a new staple like some of the ones I mentioned earlier, but this is still an exceptional card in some decks. Disruption decks are going to absolutely adore this card. This is a fantastic card. You probably don't play it randomly just on the off chance, but decks that can use it are going to absolutely love it. And like I've said, it is going to really make you think about what to do, whether you should attack for a little bit of damage or not. And we are all at some point going to lose a game because we attacked into this and our opponent hit that one card we really didn't want them to hit. I kind of like this one. And finally, we've got a couple new pairs of gloves. Now, these are ones we've basically seen before, but we've seen them for other types. So specifically the ones we are talking about today, we have got digging gloves and rubber gloves. Rubber gloves, you attach them to a Pokemon and you deal 30 more damage to your opponent's active lightning Pokemon. And digging gloves says that you attach them and you do 30 more damage to your opponent's active fighting Pokemon. And we kind of could have known these were coming, right? We kind of saw this coming because we had a bunch of these in Chilling Reign. But we didn't have all of them. We had Weeding Gloves to hurt grass Pokemon, Justified Gloves to do extra damage to darkness Pokemon, Fire Resistant Gloves to do an extra 30 to fire Pokemon, and Crushing Gloves to crush metal Pokemon. Now we've added in these extra 2 types, so we can go after Lightning and Fighting, and you should expect to get a couple more of these, maybe Colorless and Dragon and Water, in the not too distant future. I would imagine we're going to get more of these in the next set, because this seems like the kind of thing where they are trying to complete the set. And basically my analysis of these is the same as my analysis was when we saw these things before. It really depends on the matchup. Now, obviously, Justified Gloves is really good because of Crobat. It's a big deal because Crobat's everywhere and that lets you get the KO on it. That's really good. Honestly, this is one of those situations where you have to look at your metagame. But I love these cards because essentially you just look, and at any point, if there's a particular matchup where you are disadvantaged because you just need that little bit of extra damage in order to get a key KO, well, wonderful news, ladies and gentlemen. These are going to do it nicely for you. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of new trainers. Some of those like Copycat, your new gusting item, your new recovery item. They are very, very important cards. And even some of the others that might not seem huge. We've got some hand disruption, which could be really big. We got damage reduction, extra damage. These are cards that you are going to see running around. But now I want to know from you guys. I want to know what you think about all of them. And I want to know which one is your favorite. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.